Please welcome to the program, Laura Jane Grace. Laura, great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing very good.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What a real pleasure to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, I mean,
Very
just listen. I mean, so this is the story now. This is the title of the album. The idea of Transgender Dysphoria Blues has popped up in all your records, really, and you can hear it in different songs. But now you're out there front and center talking about it and touring it. What's it been like for you, just personally?
It's been very liberating. Yeah. You know, it's made playing music fun again in a lot of ways that for a while it wasn't.
Just tell me about the process to get here, to do this.
You mean with making the record, or?
Well, and to come out. I remember reading in the Rolling Stone article, and I was I was like, what? Mm-hmm. You know, after the initial reaction, I was like, oh, okay, well, cool, whatever. But initially, I was like, what? So, but it's a choice to do that, to start transition, to then talk about it. And tell me what was going on in your mind at that time.
Well, I mean, my earliest memories are of gender dysphoria, you know, and feeling that misalignment in my body. And, but it probably wasn't until I was like 13, 14 years old that I'd even heard the story of someone transitioning, you know? And then a big portion of my life got kind of swept up away with playing in a band and going on tour. And for a while, it was really easy to ignore the way I felt. But then I kind of hit a wall where I had to confront what was going on with me and deal with it and work out. I couldn't compartmentalize things anymore.
What are the steps by which one confronts this? Or I mean, I recognize you don't speak for everybody who experiences this and who is this, but from your personal experience.
I mean, first it was just accepting that it was true about myself and that it wasn't something that was going to go away, you know, recognizing that the same behavior patterns within me that had been there since as early as I can remember were still happening at 33 years old or whatever, and knowing that that's just the way it was always going to be, and I was always going to feel that way, that I could ignore it sometimes, but it was always going to come back. So there was the personal acceptance of that. And then there was the step of, you know, telling people who I was close to that this is something that I was going to do and this was who I am. And then there was telling the rest of the world. So.
Which is the scariest person to tell?
Well, telling the rest, coming out publicly in Rolling Stone magazine is kind of a little frightening.
Well, because you do it and then you wait for it to go.
Right, and there was like a 2-month window between when I did the interview and when it came out. So it was like running into friends that I knew, like, okay, well, soon you're gonna know this, you know? It was like a weird limbo.
You told your wife first, early, I suppose. Mm-hmm. What's the first thing she said to you?
She thought I was gonna tell her that I was having an affair, so she was relieved. I mean, she did not expect what I was gonna say, you know? And there's like the initial moment when you tell people that, and then you can see that it takes them, you know, a little while to process it and what it means, you know? But
how much did she know about transgender dysphoria? Did she know that it meant you weren't leaving her? Like, how did that, I mean, once you say it,
right.
That's she probably had a million questions.
For sure. And I had read a book that was recommended to me by a friend called The Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano that I told her that she should read because it answers a lot of those questions, you know, and I did the same thing with a lot of my other friends, you know, and my mom, you know, and just having a resource to point to was really valuable. And the same with doing like the Rolling Stone article, like the thought of going one by one to all the people I knew and having a sit-down conversation where I explained it seemed like exhausting and terrifying. So having something where I could go, here, this is what I'm going through. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask me, but this should explain the majority of them.
What a really, it's nice to have that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an advantage that I had over most people.
But were they calling you with a book report afterwards? Like, how are we dealing with all that?
No, I mean, you know, for most people, it was a pretty easy thing to accept once they realized that I'm still me, that it didn't mean, like, that I have a totally different taste in music and I like different movies, actually, or that that nothing they knew about me was true. It was just the gender they perceived
you developed a strange interest in Rachel McAdams movies right there.
No, I always had the interest in Rachel McAdams movies. I love The Notebook.
As do I. But I heard you say that when you were young, you'd watch Madonna and go, I want to do that.
Right. Well, that was my first moment of self-recognition, and I vividly remember being like 4 years old and seeing her perform on TV and thinking like, oh, that's me, you know, like that's what I want to do and that's who I'm going to be when I grow up, you know. And shortly after that, it was watching Mia Farrow in Rosemary's Baby, and that was even like more reassuring because she has the pixie cut, you know. And then it was like, oh, that can be me, you know, like that's the haircut I have now, like. But knowing instinctively that those are feelings that I had to keep to myself and be ashamed of without ever being told that. Just being like, learning that from my surroundings was definitely something difficult to deal with.
How do you feel about talking about it? Because at the end of the day, this is deeply important and personal. You're a musician, you write great records, and this is a great record. And obviously the subject matter is there. It's all over the album. But you're a musician, you recognize for the first few years of this, and the first few albums of this is going to be a huge part of the conversation that you have with people.
Sure. Well, I think the point about talking about it publicly is that most of the time trans people are really misrepresented in the media, and there aren't a lot of positive trans stories, you know? So trying to educate people and being available to answer questions, and again, I can only speak for myself and my experience, but just putting yourself out there, the hope is that eventually people will just get bored of that and realize that there's a whole wide world of gender variance and sexual orientations, and that all of it deserves to be respected, and people deserve to be happy with who they are, and that it's no big deal.
We're still in the very beginnings of this too, because people still, as you're right, this is the very beginning of people's talking about it the way you are. Certainly in a punk rock band, in a rock and roll band, I don't remember seeing it. I remember Jane County, Wayne County.
Right, from
I
the
remember
electric
that.
chairs, for
Yeah.
sure. And there's an artist named Venus DeMars who plays in a band called All the Pretty Horses from Minneapolis, who had been out there for years doing it.
A couple pop up. You're a big band that gets on the radio. I haven't. When it occurred to me that this is what you were going to do and like this is how you were going to talk about it, I thought, oh, that's really cool, because there's going to be a whole bunch of kids who are listening to this who may identify some of the same things in themselves and go, well, it's okay for Laura Jane, so it must be okay for me. Are you meeting people like that, talking about it?
Sure, you know, but I always try to stress to them that, you know, if they get that from me, that it's just as important for me to get that from them and make that connection and have that kind of community.
Who's the first person you told?
Well, my wife was the first person I told, and then I told my mom, and I told my band.
How'd they feel about that?
My band, I mean, again, it took them a second to process. I felt like I drop-kicked them in the face, and there was like, jaws dropped, and everyone exchanged an awkward hug, and we all said goodbye. But I mean, really, it was like kind of business as usual. It was like, okay, I'll see you at practice tomorrow, and we leave on tour X day, and you know, the only change was really the pronouns.
Did you feel better about it?
Yeah. Again, living, like, having to compartmentalize your life, where I essentially had to have, like, and then I, you know, sometimes do this, you know, like, and this is a shameful thing. Like, it was just killing me. So it was like a choice of, like, either I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna blow my head off, or I'm gonna do this.
Well, you know, the statistics for people who experience this are very high and unsettling for suicide attempts. Is it 41?
41% of trans people attempt suicide. Mm-hmm. And it's like 1 to 2% of cisexual people.
That's a heavy number. Mm-hmm. How did you manage your way through that?
Well, I'm part of that statistic.
And so to sit back and wake up one day and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take, did something happen in you?
Well, having a 4-year-old, you know, is a big part of that. And living for someone else and realizing you have a responsibility to someone is a big thing, for sure.
How do you communicate this to her?
I think kids understand it the easiest. You know, all they want to be reassured is that you love them and that you're going to be there for them. So once she got that, I mean, she immediately took to the pronouns. Yeah. But once she just understood that I'll always be her parent and I'm always there for her.
What kind of conversations do you have at night with her?
Well, sure that was a literal conversation. I mean, like, I was putting her to bed one night, and she was like, you know, Daddy, I don't want you to be a girl. I want you to still be a boy. And I said to her, like, no matter what happens, I'll always love you, and I'll always be your dad. You know, that'll never change. And that was enough for her.
Do you, you're a thoughtful girl. It's not what that conversation would have been like if you had a son?
Well, that was actually something that was really, like, weighed heavily on my mind when my wife was pregnant. You know, like, the idea of her having a son freaked me out. Like, so when it was a girl, I literally, like, was in the emergency room, or not the emergency room, but the operating room or whatever. She had a C-section. And I was like, it's a girl. Thank you.
Why?
Just because I knew. Like, I mean, I was really struggling with dysphoria then. I hadn't made the decision to transition at that point or anything, but I just knew, I don't know, for whatever reason, you know?
You have, your fans are so intense, I count myself one of them, and I just wonder what it must have felt like for you the first time that you were on stage and they were chanting Laura.
Really empowering. Yeah. Really, really empowering. Mm-hmm.
And you're just playing it. Did it dawn on you right away, or at one point did you look around and go, this is happening to me here?
Well, there's been, like, a lot of those moments in my life where I find myself in situations where the younger me that's still in me is just like amazed at what was possible and where I am, you know? Like, I never thought I'd get to tour the world. I never thought that I'd play with most of the bands that I've played with. And, you know, to be on stage and hear, like, our audience sing back a song like True Trans Soul Rebel with a lyric like, does God bless your transsexual heart, you know, is tremendous.
We have a clip of you playing with Joan Jett, I think. This is
cool.
Yeah.
Happy the way she looks, she's happy with her gender, and they love each other so. Androgynous, loves to let you know, love each other so. Androgynous.
I want that clip. That's a great clip, right?
I don't have it.
You don't have that? That's a great moment.
Yeah.
Right? And plus that song. We have something else related to that. We had a message for you here.
Hi, George. Hi, Laura Jane. It's Joan from New York.
From New York.
And I just wanted to say hi and let you know and your audience know what a big fan I am of your band, Against Me. I want to say thank you for writing one of the best songs on our latest album, Unvarnished. The song's called Soulmates to Strangers. We really admire you and your talent, so keep rocking. Love you.
That's totally Joan Jett.
That's totally Joan Jett. Yeah. When we told Joan you were coming on, she was thrilled, you know, and more than amenable to do that. Who reached out to you when you made this announcement? Because I bet you had felt for a minute like this could be a lonely reality for you.
For sure, yeah. I mean, well, Joan was one of the first people to reach out. And we had toured with Joan in, like, 2006, so I'd known her in our paths had crossed or whatever. But she immediately, like, you know, reached out and just said, like, if you need a friend, I'm here for you. And, like, you know, I ever need to talk, whatever, like.
That's just a full heart, right?
Yeah, it's amazing, you know?
Were you surprised that happened?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's Joan Jett.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, conversely, did you have negative reaction?
Surprisingly, no. You know, I mean, not within the music community, certainly not. Like, I've been told that I was going to burn in hell by bag boys in grocery stores and stuff like that, and I've been physically blocked from entering restrooms. I had a TSA security guard give me a pat down and tell him, and like look to his partner and say, oh, this is why I hate my job. So there's moments like that where it's more when you're in general population, but in the music community, no.
How does that make you feel when they say that stuff?
I have to really shut off my emotions because I realize that there's a lot of instances in life where people are gonna do it to get a rise out of me. And I mean, the idea of being arrested when you're trans and being like put into a male prison, because that's what happens most of the time, is terrifying to me. So I know that I have to really like control any kind of reaction to stuff like that. And I mean, really, it doesn't matter, you know, like whatever. If someone's gonna be a jerk, then I'd rather know that in advance and I can write them off and I can move on with my life.
Right. Well, or you could do other stuff with it. I love this. I was thinking about the young political you.
You have a copy of my zine?
Your zine, Misanthrope.
Please do not read my writing.
No, but there are things that I did laugh at because there's one in particular that I read that made me laugh, and it was, you had a list, you did like your top 10 list. What was this? Dickhead cops of the month. That made me laugh. But you named the officers.
Well, they were jerks, I'll tell you.
You quoted Trotsky, which is great. But didn't this whole thing happen for you by getting...
That blows me away.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Well, you can have this.
Oh, thank you.
Weren't you a kid? Didn't you get roughed up by the cops anyway, and then this sort of triggered a lot for you?
Well, that was like, for me, my real politicizing moment when I was like 14 years old. I got beat up by a group of cops. It was the 4th of July, and I had just gone to the beach to visit some friends, and they just like, I was a young punk kid in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I definitely was mouthy back to them or whatever, but I mean, they like hog-tied me, threw me around on the ground, had a boot in my back and a boot on my head, you know, like, I remember being thrown into the back of the cop car and when they were cutting the zip ties, the cop's like, I'm gonna cut this, if you kick me, I'm gonna kill you, you know, like with a gun on me. And I'm 14 years old, I probably weighed 100 pounds,
Is this in Florida?
This was in South Florida,
South Florida, yeah.
And funny enough was, a couple years later, Alex Lifeson from Rush was arrested in Naples, Florida. Yeah. And like the story of his arrest, I read it thinking like, oh, well, that was those same cops. But Naples just wasn't a friendly place to youth.
Right. But now you're in Chicago, right?
I am.
Yeah. What's that been like?
It's been a transition. It's cold. The weather's different for sure. But you know, unfortunately, I'm so in and out of town that I haven't really gotten my bearings yet. But there's definitely more of a community and more resources. So.
When you were, as a kid, you know, military base to military base with your father and the whole family, right? Mm-hmm. and feeling the things you were feeling. What was that experience like?
Well, growing up in a really like macho environment like that, you know, contributed to feeling like I had to hide the person I was, you know.
Did you intimate it to your father at some point?
No, I mean, I remember wanting to play with Barbies and him making it pretty clear that that wasn't something I should be doing, you know? But a lot of it was just like instinctively I knew I had to protect myself and not share the way I felt.
Right. So you told your mom, I'm assuming she took it well?
She did.
How about father?
I haven't talked to my father since.
No.
Yeah.
Since you told him? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a thing to carry.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship was what it was. It wasn't like it was great to begin with, you know? And for me, it's like, you know, it's his loss. Like, if he comes around, he comes around, and I'll still be, you know, his kid.
Yeah.
But I can't live my life like that, you know?
So you have to get to a place of forgiveness and acceptance? Mm-hmm. Has that always been a part of you?
No, I've struggled with that, you know, but I feel like I'm in a much better place with that. And I think if you asked most of the people who know me personally, they'd tell you that, like, I'm much nicer to be around and, like, you know, it's made me a better person, you know?
The physical change, like going through the transition and all that, and the hormones, has it been an impact on your personality as well? Have you noticed things changing in you?
Yeah, but, I mean, a lot of that's so gradual that it's really hard to tell. And a lot of it, too, was, like, because I started on hormone replacement therapy right as it came out publicly. So it was hard to really separate what the changes were mentally from like all that roller coaster ride and what was happening hormonally.
I got this picture, which I think is... That's her.
Uh-huh. It's my great-grandma, Laura Jane Grace.
The name is there.
Uh-huh.
Why that name?
Well, that was what my mother would have named me, yeah.
Right.
So.
It's incredible. Stick around. More with Laura Jane Grace right after this. She has a little singer right there. Coming on your wife's online feed. You know? Mm-hmm. Are you is she going to grow up to be a singer? Is that the idea?
I wouldn't be disappointed if she did.
If she did?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, a lot of parents who are in the showbiz world don't want their kids to follow in their footsteps because it's a scary, mind-soaked field.
Sure, yeah. I mean, she has a real advantage over most people in that she's 4 years old and she's already toured on a tour bus, you know, and already been around a lot. Like, Joan Jett's tucked her into bed, you know, so.
That's actually pretty
cool. She's got a good start, yeah.
In your zine days, I mean, you interviewed Bobby Seals.
I did, yeah. Bobby Seale co-founded the Black Panther Party.
Black Panther. And so how old were you when you interviewed Bobby?
I was 16 years old.
What was that like?
You know, I found his contact information. I was doing my zine. I reached out to him, and I don't think he realized I was just a 16-year-old kid who did a photocopied cut and paste zine. So I did the interview, and I'm sure it was just super annoying being a 16-year-old or whatever. And then there was like a little bit of a misunderstanding at the end of it, where this was like beginning days of email or whatever, where he had sent me his answers, and then like he had put on there like, I own the copyright for this. And when I hit reply, that same thing was there, and he misread it as me saying that.
All right.
So he like kind of went off on me in an email, and I wrote back very like, I'm sorry, Mr. Seal, I think you're misunderstanding the exchange. And then he was like, I'm getting too old for this. So he was cool about it.
But, I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, there's that anarchisto sound. There's that thing that you have in your music that comes from Uprising.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that would have had an impact on you, the Seals and all that. Bobby
For sure.
Seals, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get first connected to that kind of, I mean, your song, Baby, I'm an Anarchist, is one of the greats of love songs. Mm-hmm. How did you first get connected to that world? Was it just being pissed off at the cops in Florida?
Well, that was the start of it, and then I started doing a zine, and then like got into doing Food Not Bombs, which is like, you know, taking donated food or whatever and feeding the homeless with it or whatever, just giving out free food. And then I moved to Gainesville, Florida, and started to volunteer at a place called the Civic Media Center, which is a volunteer-run, non-corporate press library and activist space, and just got really into the Florida activist scene. And we used to do like May Day gatherings. And that song, Baby, I'm an Anarchist, was written around the time of the Seattle protests. Yeah. And just, you know, I had a group of friends, and we went to all the protests, and that was part of it.
We marched together for the 8-hour day. We held hands in the streets of Seattle, but when it came time to throw bricks through that Starbucks window, you left me all alone. Mm-hmm.
It was very particular to that time.
Do you look back at some of the stuff that you've written, or when you're on stage singing, going through everything you've gone through, do you sing some of your lyrics and go, wow? Who was that kid?
Yes and no. I mean, like it's a cliche, but like when you're younger, you feel a lot more confident in your views, and everything's very black and white. And as you get older, you realize things are a lot more gray, and you feel a little less confident on some things.
Is it nice to walk around confident?
Yeah.
Tell me the story. The idea of you met you've come to know fans over the years, and you saw a fan in transition.
Well, that was one of the kind of steps leading up to deciding to transition, like one of those moments where you feel like the universe is speaking to you. And there was a person who had come out to our shows, probably starting in like 2003, 2004, and just one of those people whose face catches you and you recognize them whenever you see them. And then I would see them at shows throughout the years, and in 2010 I saw them at a show and realized like, oh, you're transitioning, you know, like, and it just like struck me that, you know, here's this person who's grown up coming to my shows and probably looked at me as some kind of role model, or not role model, but has looked up to me in some way. Yeah. And seeing them like doing something that I was so afraid to accept about myself was just a real eye-opening moment. And I remember like later that night when we were playing, she was like, you know, crowd surfing off on top of people, one finger in the air, and it was just like, you are such a badass. And
you're on stage looking at this going, I need to deal something about this. It's incredible. Okay, I'm gonna do some rapid fire questions. It's word association. Are you ready for this?
Okay, all right.
All right, here we go. This is gonna be good. All right, I say hero, you say?
I say mom.
Guitar, you say?
Rickenbacker.
Shoplifting, you say?
Never done it.
I say punk, you say?
Crass.
That's it. That's a life change. That band changed my life when I first heard it.
For sure.
And changed yours as well, right? I say daughter, you say?
Evelyn.
How do you feel about your own mortality? Never mind the transition, just that when kids, all my friends who have kids say you realize very quickly you're getting old.
Right.
When you watch them age. Do you think about that differently?
Yeah, and I think about it all the time. And it's something that's way more apparent to me too with touring, because I'll go away for a chunk of time and come back and the growth is really evident, you know, like both height and mentally, like the way she talks and everything. So just seeing that before your eyes and like, I don't know, there's just been a lot of moments where I've really had to confront that and like accept that, you know, your time is really short and you should really appreciate what you have and make the most out of that. And I know those are all cliches, but it's really, really true.
They're often cliches for a reason, right? What a real pleasure to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Laura Jane Grace. Transgender Dysphoria Blues is the album. It's excellent. We'll be right back.